Yo, what's good, family? Welcome back to Wave Talk 101, where we keep it real about the 360 wave journey, the culture, and everything in between. I'm your host, Darius, and today we're breaking it all the way down. What wave products should you really be using and when? Now, I know this is one of the biggest questions that I used to have back when I first started waving. Do I use wave grease? What's the point of moisturizer? Is wave oil even a thing? So today we're going to talk about all of that, and I'm going to share what's worked for me personally, plus a few mistakes I've made along the way. Now let's get into it. First up, let's talk about moisturizer. Now, this is really the foundation of healthy waves. Look, if your hair is dry, brittle, and breaking, you could brush for 5 hours straight and it won't mean a thing. Moisture is what keeps the hair soft, so it can be trained into whatever wave pattern you're trying to achieve. Now, back in the day, I thought wave grease was enough, so I slapped the Murrays on my scalp, on my hair, brush, and keep it pushing. But my hair was like super shiny. It felt like pretty much like a carpet, like there was like nothing underneath, no moisture, no nothing. It wasn't really until I started, using like a good leave-in moisturizer, all natural, no sulfates, is when I realized that my waves were getting deeper, not just shinier, but healthier. So one tip I would recommend is apply your moisturizer daily, preferably right after, a warm towel or, a shower wash and style session, when your hair is more open to absorbing the moisturizer, once your pores are open and it can kind of retain the moisture that you're applying to your scalp. All right, now let's get into the heavyweights. What's wave grease versus, what's pomade? Like, what's the difference? Wave grease versus pomade. I know a lot of people, they typically have this question or they have no understanding of, what essentially a wave grease is versus a wave pomade. On the surface level, it may seem like it's common sense, but I'm gonna break it down for you real quick. So wave grease versus pomade, what's the real difference? So check this. Wave grease is usually heavier, thicker, and it sits on top of the hair. It's not necessarily a bad thing though. It pretty much helps lock in your moisturizer or whatever you use to moisturize your scalp, as well as your hair. So I know there's a lot of people, they really think that wave grease is to, keep your scalp moisturized, but, because they see that, it's keeping their scalp shiny and, there's some kind of like lubrication there, in a sense, but it's really not used for that. Wave grease is for your waves, for your hair, specifically, not necessarily your scalp. So wave grease acts as a companion in a sense to help, lock in the moisture from the moisturizer that you're applying to your scalp as well as to your hair. Now, pomade is similar, but some formulas are, softer or have different oils and, other additives that are implemented into the formula. So a lot of the oils that are in pomades are pretty much for shine and, conditioning your hair. So I'm gonna share, a story with y'all. So when I first started, I used way too much grease. I'm talking, the old school Murrays, underneath the cabinet, that's been around for about 10, 15 years, been passed down from, one waver to the next in the family. So, I was just simply using Murrays, just brushing it, tying down my Durag, and I was seeing some waves. So, I felt like, this was the process. I felt like this was pretty much the only product that I needed. It's Murray's, a brush, and, a Durag. And as long as I'm brushing, I can just pretty much, keep it pushing and, I should see progress. But honestly, my scalp was crying for help. So after washing my hair, applying the Murray's, brushing, tying down my Durag, like within a matter of like 2 to 3 days, I would say like my scalp would start flaking. I would start seeing dandruff. And I would be like, damn, I just, washed my hair a few days ago. And, you know, I just applied product. You know, I felt, or at least I thought the Murray's would be, you know, keeping my scalp clean and, you know, keeping it lubricated. But I was wrong. So now that I know better, I do better. So pomade or grease should be the last step. It's like putting a jacket on top of a hoodie. You moisturize first, then seal it in with the grease or pomade. So I'm gonna share with y'all another tip. You should honestly be using grease 2 to 3 times a week, not every day, unless you're woofing hard and you just need that extra lay. And what I mean by that is, so the grease, any product that you're gonna be applying to your scalp, honestly, should be based on like your activity level. And what I mean by that, like, are you like sweating a lot throughout the day? Are you, you know, hitting the gym? You know, sweating, sitting in the sauna? Are you, you know, sweating a lot from your scalp? I know some people, you know, when they're working out, what have you, they may just sweat from their body, but, you know, like me personally, I sweat mostly from my head. So I'll be drenching in sweat, you know, during the workout, after a workout or whatever. So it depends on your activity level. I know some of us, you know, some brothers and sisters, you know, they work outside in the elements, you know, in the heat, and, you know, may sweat a lot. So that should determine, you know, about how many times a week you're applying, you know, a grease to your, you know, to your hair to lock in that moisture from, you know, the moisturizer that you're going to be using. All right, so next I'm going to get into oils. Now, this is the secret weapon. This one right here is absolutely slept on. So you have a few oils that I'm going to mention. You have wave oil, coconut oil, argan oil. They're not just for shine. And I'm going to break that down and, you know, let you know what I mean by that. So I started using wave oil at night during my woof sessions. And, you know, typically I'll woof anywhere from like, I say 2 to 3 months at most. And sometimes, I say on the minimum end, 2 months. I say about 2 months. So, like I said, I started using oils during my woof sessions. I'll use like a thick pomade, you know, like Murray's at first, until, you know, we came across, you know, Ocean View Deep Waves pomade, which is a far better woofing pomade in my opinion. Just from the overall scent, the hold, it has a superior hold that even if you're woofing like 3 to 4 months, sometimes even 5 months, you know, it's going to lock in that wave pattern and hold that wave pattern that you've been, you know, working so hard to form. But anyway, so, you know, I would use the oil, just rub a little bit in the palm of my hand, you know, and then just rub it, you know, on the top of my head, combined with, you know, Ocean View and, you know, as well as a Durag. So next morning, you know, my hair felt softer, you know, after, you know, doing this, you know, this routine from, you know, over the months of woofing. And my hair was like super soft. I'm talking about a hot butter knife through butter soft. I mean, you could pretty much put like a regular everyday like hair comb and just run your hair through it, and, you know, it wasn't getting any resistance at all. So basically what I'm saying is oils nourish the scalp. They also help with growth, you know, receding hairlines, or, you know, male pattern, I think that's how you say it, male pattern baldness or male baldness pattern, whichever one, but y'all get the point. But essentially you don't want to overdo it. Oil should be lightweight, and too much can clog your pores or make your do-rag smell funky. So you know your do-rag has had enough when you can smell it yourself. So if you can smell your do-rag from all the oils and products, then you best believe, you know, people around you can smell it as well. So let me backtrack for a second and touch back on the coconut oil, just so, you know, everybody don't get it misunderstood. So coconut oil is good for your hair specifically. I know, me personally, I've had this experience. I've applied coconut oil to my scalp in the past, and it just basically irritated it. it made it itch. And I know many other wavers that have had the same experience as well. So use caution when using coconut oil. It is good. I often use it on like my beard, to help with the shine, the softness. But you definitely, if you are using coconut oil, just apply it to, your hair, the top level, top surface of your hair. You don't necessarily want to apply it directly to your scalp after washing your hair, because it will, make it itch. Like a lot of properties in coconut oil, like the natural properties help fight bacteria and fungus and things like that. So that could, definitely be the cause of it itching. And it often dries out your scalp as well. So although it is an oil, I know a lot of people think, well, it's an oil, it should be, keeping my scalp lubricated and, moisturized, but it'll honestly dry it out just because of the, the natural properties in the coconut oil. So use caution when using coconut oil. Just apply it to your hair. So you can also pair the coconut oil with a moisturizer as well, So, all right, that's enough on that point. So let me basically touch on some more oils. Some other oils that you can use is like avocado oil. Man, there's so many different oils. You can use, a lot of essential oils. But oils overall will help you with locking in shine, and wave grease will also help you with locking in shine and locking in your moisturizer. All right. So essentially you want to apply oils 1 to 2 times a week or right before your night session for added nourishment. All right, next I'm going to touch on wave shampoos and conditioner, the wash and style game. Now this is very important, so let's not forget, keeping your hair clean is pretty much the foundation of 360 waving. You want to have a clean and healthy scalp. So keeping your hair clean is a part of the process. You can't skip this. There's no shortcuts. You can't get around it. Now there are shampoos out there that are just made for wavers, sulfate-free, moisturizing, and waver-friendly. And me personally, I like to use the Ocean View Deep Waves Pomade 360 Wash and Style shampoo. It's a wave shampoo and deep conditioner all in one. So you get two in one. It's you get more bang for your buck. Plus it's infused with biotin, which helps with your hair thinning, hair loss. If you're starting to see like early signs of male pattern baldness, or you're starting to see like your hairline recede, that biotin that's infused in Ocean View Deep Waves Pomade shampoo is going to help you combat those early signs of hair loss. So look, I'm going to be honest. I used to hit my hair with a regular bar of soap, back when I was like a teenager, like early teens. And, as an adult, when I look back on it, I'm really not proud of it now. But hey, it's real. And I'm pretty sure some of y'all have been in that same boat as well, especially back in the day when you were just figuring things out and trying to see, what works best to get the waves that you seen, the popular kid, or, the star football player, star basketball player, at your school, rocking the 360. You're like, man, how is he getting his waves? So let me just, mix up my own concoction and, experiment in the bathroom and, just try to figure it out so I can get my hair just like that. So back in my early teens, when I was just using, regular bar soap, it really produced bad results. It left my hair dry, crunchy almost. And, now that I know better, now I use wave shampoos maybe once a week, sometimes twice a week. But like I said, it all depends on your level of activity and how much you feel that you need to wash your hair. So I would say a tip for hair washing is make sure that you at least at a minimum wash your hair once a week and do a full wash and style session while your hair is damp, so you can make sure you get that definition as well as lock in the wave pattern that you're trying to get. So you cannot skip your washing style sessions. I mean, there are many ways to go about doing your washing style session. You can do it while you're in the shower, while your hair is wet. You got the shampoo, you got your hair, sudded up from the shampoos, and you using your favorite 360 wave brush. I would highly recommend that you use a 360 wave brush as well as the Ocean View Deep Waves Pomade washing style shower brush. Now, the purpose of the Ocean View Deep Waves Pomade washing style shower brush is for you to effectively clean your scalp. You have to clean your scalp. And this brush has teeth on it to where it can actually penetrate your hair, your waves, and touch your scalp. And you can remove all the excess product, the dirt, the buildup from all the wave products that you've been, packing in your hair throughout the week. So this is highly effective for you to reach your scalp, clean it effectively, remove product, and not disturb the wave pattern that you've been forming. So a traditional wave brush, curved wave brush, long handle wave brush, those are good as well. But sometimes when those bristles get wet in the shower, they become a lot more pliable, and it's difficult for those bristles, from the steam, the heat, the water, for the bristles to touch your scalp unless you're using like an extremely hard bristle brush. So that's why I highly recommend that you use the Ocean View Deep Waves Pomade washing style shower brush as well, because it's going to help you clean your scalp as well as keep your wave pattern intact. So once again, for the tip, wash your hair at least at a minimum once a week. Doing the washing style brush session, whether you're in the shower or, once you get out the shower, looking directly in the mirror, using the handheld mirror, and, apply the shampoo to your hair then, and make sure that you're hitting every angle while you're looking in the mirror so you can get that definition and, really define those wave patterns that you're trying to get. All right, so now I'm gonna break down when to use what, the routine. Now you might be thinking, Darius, that's a lot of products. When do I use this? I don't have time to use all these products, et cetera, et cetera. Now here's a breakdown. So on a daily basis, you're gonna wanna use a light moisturizer, morning or night. So it really don't matter. You can use it first thing when you wake up, or, at the end of the day, after coming home from work, working out, gym, whatever, hitting the streets, whatever. Make sure that you're using your moisturizer before you lay down for the night. Get a quick brush session in, apply your moisturizer, tie down your hair with a silk Durag, and then you're good. So daily you want to use a light moisturizer, morning or night. And you also want to basically put in a quick brush session. Typically elite wavers will do like an hour a day. Depending on who you ask, they may brush multiple hours a day. In my opinion, I think 1 hour a day is, pretty good itself, and it's typically the standard. But, it's going to vary from waiver to waiver. Some may just only need 30 minutes or 15 minutes. Regardless of how much time you're putting it in a brush session, make sure that the brush session is, good enough to where you can start seeing progress from day to day, as well as making sure that you're being consistent with the brush session. So that's the most important thing that you want to basically implement is the consistency of the brush sessions. And, then second can come, the amount of time that you're actually putting into each brush session. And I know daily, definitely wear your Durag overnight. So this is a must. And I know sometimes you may be too tired, or you don't feel like getting up out the bed, or, going to go find your Durag. You probably left it in the car, or, it's somewhere. It's in your backpack, your gym bag, or wherever you left it at. You need to go find it, put it on your hair, tie it down, preferably with the straps flat, so you don't wake up in the morning with creases in your forehead right before you gotta get to work and give that presentation, or You got to stand up in class and, read an essay or assignment or whatever. You just don't, basically what I'm trying to say is you don't want to be walking around with, creases in your forehead from your Durag when there's better ways to, better and more efficient ways to tie down your Durag nowadays. I know back in the day, we used to have our straps, real thin. We would like stretch them, almost, have them like folded in a sense. Each strap would be folded to where they were almost like shoestrings in a sense, and we would tie it around around our head, and you take it off, you have the strap lines from the Durag. So basically what I'm trying to say is daily use your light moisturizer, morning or night. Knock out a quick brush session and make sure that you're locking down your wave pattern every night with a silk Durag. All right. Now, 2 to 3 times a week, you want to use a pomade or grease to seal in that moisture from the moisturizer. Next, you want to add your nighttime oil treatment into the mix 2 to 3 times a week. So, pomade, wave grease, you want to seal in that moisture 2 to 3 times a week. So, your nighttime oil treatment, especially when woofing. So, like I mentioned earlier, you can use the essential oils, you can use the olive oils, you can use the coconut oils, avocado oils, any type of oil. You can even use some of the wave oils that you see out on the market today, but make sure that you're reading the ingredients and that the ingredients are mostly natural. So there are going to be some preservatives in some oils or some wave products, but if you're looking for ultimate scalp health and you want to make sure that your waves, your scalp is getting the most nutrients and the best, make sure that you're using natural oils, essential oils, or products that have minimal preservatives or ingredients that you can't understand. All right, so weekly. This is something that you're going to want to do weekly. So you're going to want to wash with wave-friendly shampoo. I repeat, wave-friendly shampoo. You don't want to be washing your waves, your scalp, your hair with anything that's going to strip it of its natural oils or the nutrients. So you want to make sure that you're not using a shampoo that's drying out your hair, but is actually locking in moisture. And you also want to condition and detangle your hair. So yeah, I know you're brushing and your hair is curly and you're trying to lock in a wave pattern, but you also want to detangle those curls. So whenever you are locking in your wave pattern, you're brushing, you're actually allowing your hair to form that pattern based on the angles that you're hitting while you're brushing. So it's basically important to detangle your curls, which are essentially the foundation of your 360 waves. All right, so our next tip is going to be heavy brush session right after wash, aka the washing style. So I already know I touched on this earlier, but I'm going to touch on it again. So this is the time where your hair is damp. It's susceptible to pretty much the wave pattern that you're wanting to implement into your scalp. So this is the time where you can command your hair to do exactly what it is that you want it to do. You know, the steam from the shower or the water from, you washing your hair and, mixed with the shampoo and the conditioner is basically laid down your hair and it's at your will, during this moment, during the washing style session. So you want to make sure you put in a mandatory brush session. So like I said, you can start off, if you're new, I would say start off with like at least 15 minutes. But as a more seasoned and professional waver, I would recommend anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour at this time. So making this a routine is going to make all the difference and locking in that 360 wave pattern. And it's going to give you those deep defined waves that you're wanting to achieve. The key is consistency. You don't need 10 products. You just need the right ones and the right timing. And trust me, I had to learn the hard way. One day your waves looking crisp, next day dry, frizzy, falling apart. That's usually product misuse, too much grease, no moisture, or dirty hair. Take care of your scalp, treat your hair like royalty, because your waves, they're not just a style, they're a symbol, a craft, and a commitment. That's it for episode 3 of Wave Talk 101. If this helped you in any way, drop a comment, share with a fellow waver, or tag me in your progress videos. Let's keep growing, let's keep brushing, let's keep learning. I'm Darius, and I'll catch y'all next time on Wave Talk 101. Stay wavy.